Welcome back to D&D Beyond. I'm Amy Dallen. Micheal Galvis is here with me, as you saw on Tuesday. And to celebrate the Week of Dragons out in the world, we have returning guest who did not tell us the cool secrets. So we are punishing him by making him come back and give us all the good info. Returning guest, amazing streamer, performer, and Fizban's Treasury of Dragon contributor, Eugenio Vargas. How you doing?
I'm so good. If this is punishment, I have to, do wrong things more often.
We're so thrilled you could come back and talk to us a little bit about this. Of course, we got to talk last week to the wonderful James Wyatt, the lead writer on this project, but James had started sharing sort of early looks at the team that they assembled to put together this awesome book, including some contributors to the coolest chapter. I'm just going to say it, Chapter 5, the Draconomicon. So we will dig into all of that. But in addition to what you actually got to put in the book, I believe you, like we, have been just sitting here basking in it, steeping ourselves in the dragon magic that suffuses it. And we're going to pick some favorites because that amuses us and we like to do it. So we're just going to share some things we love from the book and go around the horn. And let's start with just first thoughts on the book overall. Eugenio?
It's so good. And I say that as I was just telling Micheal and Amy that my contributions to the book, I'm very excited about, but they're very much sort of self-contained little sections. So it isn't like I have fingerprints all over this book. So I feel like I can say with only a little bit of bias that the whole book is so great. And one of the things that I think is so exciting about it, obviously we're getting all new dragons with the gem dragons and that kind of stuff. But what I love most about this book is that it solves the problem that is so ubiquitous in D&D that we all sort of joke about it at one point or another, which is, it's called Dungeons and Dragons, but there aren't a ton of dungeons and there are even fewer dragons in most campaigns. And this book sort of solves that problem by telling you exactly how you can use dragons in your campaign in a way that isn't just a, really high HP, scary breath weapon like combat damage soak. There are sections about the personalities of dragons and the schemes of dragons and the life cycles of dragons, and it's all of the things that you need to put the eponymous creature into your campaign, and it just does it really well, I think.
Well, I think that transitions us right into the faves, because I think you were looking specifically at the chapter 3, right? Is where this good stuff is located. Let's pull it up.
I mean, that's certainly where it's concentrated. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Wait, I've got to find it too. Oh, my book, I've spent so much time staring at my babies in Chapter 5 that my book just falls open to Chapter 5 now. So I have to go back a little bit. All right, great.
Yeah, I think
the intro. Yeah, Micheal?
In reading that chapter, unless I'm thinking of another chapter, there's a section that really popped out at me, and it was talking about how you could use the dragons as placeholders for gods. More specifically in like mythic Odysseys of Theros, where the gods do kind of coexist with mortals or more often interact with them, which I thought is a really great way to just bring dragons into your campaign, even if they're not going to be a major player within the adventure itself. So, I mean, how cool would that be? You're just like, oh, I worship so-and-so. It's like, okay, in this campaign, that is a gold dragon.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And dragons have, this chapter talks quite a bit about it. Dragons have such a, I think, funny relationship with religion, in that they don't, even what the rest of the multiverse considers the dragon gods, right? Tiamat, Bahamut, and to some extent Sardior. Even dragons don't worship them per se, because dragons have this sort of innate sense of self-importance and self-reliance. that they're like, oh yeah, Bahamut, like he's great, he's very good at things. Yeah, I mean, he like respect, but like that's sort of it. They don't really go in for the whole worship thing. So the idea of making your pantheon of gods dragons is even more amusing to me because yeah, of course they don't worship anybody, but they certainly would be happy to have people worship them.
I love the implications there. And you're right, Michael. There are sections on dragons of religion and dragon gods that sort of give you different inspirations for ways to pull this out in here. We have a section on role-playing dragons, like how to name your dragon, which is a joke I don't think I understood until I just read it again. Well done.
Yes, very good.
And of course, things like Echoes Across the World. We talked a little bit about the dragon mannerisms on a previous stream.
Great.
Is there any particular table that we should look at or that you want to draw our attention to in this chapter, Eugenio?
So in this chapter, I would just say the things that I love were anything that was an adventure hook table. So there are, let's see, there's the Undead Dragon Hook table, which has some great stuff. There is the Chamber Adventure hooks, there's some like different dragon organizations adventure hook tables. I think we talked about tables last time and how much I love a good table to like percolate ideas. These have so many great ideas for how a dragon can be a player in your campaign. Like I said, in a way other than just a treasure hoarding combat encounter, right? So, you know, the Undead Dragon, let's see, let me just pick one on here. A pirate crew under the command of a ghost dragon fights to recover the dead dragon's scattered hoard. Like, what? That's awesome. That's and your final, your big bad final confrontation is on the ship, and there are undead pirates, or not, I don't know, pirates of whatever, and they're fighting you, and their undead pirate lord is flying. Like, I would have never thought of that, but that's awesome, right? And the fact that it's an undead dragon, there's so much lore in there that you can really play with. Are you trying to destroy the undead dragon? Are you trying to save the undead dragon from undeath? Are you trying to save the undead dragon's echoes on other material worlds from succumbing to undeath, which is a whole other topic? But there's just so many things in that one idea. And I think every adventure hook table in this chapter and in all the chapters are just so rich with ideas.
I love that, and if you steamroll through that encounter too quickly, you can just encounter an ancient enemy of the original dragon, and boom, there's your next one. You accidentally defeated that first thing.
Even adding to that just particular adventure idea, you know, in chapter 4, when we're seeing discussion about a dragon's hoard, we learned that their hoards could be they could be emitting powerful magic that affects the region itself. So something that gets mentioned that I really love about chapter 4 is that there is a section on how the dragon's hoard directly is tied to their lair actions. So if you steal a significant amount of loot from a dragon's hoard, you strip them of their lair actions. But even more than that, the chapter talks about how dragons could have multiple hoards. So in this case, where you have a ghost dragon who is seeking to recollect their hoard, it could be seen within the adventure itself as the dragon is the more of its hoard that it regathers, it collects, the greater of an influence the ghost dragon has over the region itself. So, for example, if this ghost dragon was evil, perhaps the more powerful it becomes, the more of its hoard it collects, the more detrimental of effect it has on, you know, local civilizations and living creatures.
That one little detail suddenly makes dragon encounters more interesting, right? Because suddenly you have an alternative. Even if you don't take it, right? Even if you just want to wail on the dragon, fine, whatever. But like, there are now mechanically, canon, whatever you want to call it, other ways of dealing with the dragon, even an enemy dragon, right? It's little things like that. There's something about the way the lore of dragons is presented in this book that it feels like it was done with such an eye to campaign creation and storytelling and adventure creation. It isn't just, here's a bunch of information about how dragons reproduce, right? It's, here's how dragons reproduce, and here's how adventurers might be involved in that, right? Everything has an eye to a story that you could tell with it. I think it was really beautifully done, and it's one of the reasons I love this book so much.
I love that. That's perfectly put. Micheal, you picked Lairs and Hoards, I think, as one of your faves. I know we just talked about it a little bit, but is there anything particular you want to draw our attention to in Chapter 4, Lairs and Hoards?
I do. And it's funny, when I was reading this book, particularly this chapter, there's 3 words that stuck out to me when I was reading about lairs, and I got so caught up on those 3 words. So the chapter 4 adds significance to lairs beyond just being a place to find gold and magical items. If I know, in my experience, when my players face off against a dragon and they defeat them, my players will just say, okay, how much gold is here? How much can we carry? And so forth. This fleshes out the lair and the gold and the hoard itself to be its own sort of plot device. And that's what I really love about it. But the 3 words that stuck out to me when this chapter introduces lairs is they describe lairs as a place of power. So if you're familiar with that common trope in media, a place of power is often a place where magic has sort of suffused the area. The magic is so dense that it can often break the laws of the video game you're playing, or in TV, it could be the central place of a plot. For bringing that into D&D, I mean, just oh my gosh, my brain just started going crazy with the implications of calling a dragon's lair a place of power. So if we look at Magic the Gathering lore for Strixhaven, we have what are called snarls, and this is the place where, when the plane was in its infancy, conflicting magic kind of got knotted up and entangled. And so if you're a spellcaster who goes to a snarl, and this is within Magic the Gathering's lore, your spellcasting is at its most powerful. It's so powerful that a simple spell could cause you to blow up and have just destroy the local area. If we're looking at that within the context of D&D, imagine if a dragon's hoard and their lair affected the region so much that, say, any spells you cast within this region are automatically cast at their highest level, or they don't require spell components. Just consider how that could create its own plot for your adventure. Your players have just faced off against this terrible enemy, and they've lost their friend. They don't have any diamonds, but then suddenly they walk into this area that's just heavily populated, and people are like, why is your friend dead? Just bring him back. And they learn that they have just stepped into what is the most powerful area within the realm itself, and it's been kept secret because
Yikes.
cultists or whoever wants to take control of the region.
Yeah.
This is not a place of honor. No glorious dead are buried here. Probably should have read those signs on your way in. Let's see. Micheal, I love a table. Is there anything that we want to spotlight from within? I mean, okay, actually, this is one of my favorite pieces of art. Let me look up the credit on this one, because it makes me very happy. Fizban argues.
Arguing? Yeah.
Smug statue in the lair of an amused brass dragon by Livia Prima, which just gives me so much flavor, including the little canary in there. But for instance, in this one, I love the idea of Link. Yeah.
I was actually going to point out the Haunted Hoards table.
Ooh, yeah.
So part of this section of the chapter is talking about adding quirks to the magic items, or just general items that you would find in a hoard. So instead of a DM being like, okay, you find a +1 sword, you find this section gives you opportunities to lay down the foundation for side quests and the like by adding extra traits to whatever it is that you find in Dragon's Hoard. There's also suggestions for how an item from a Dragon's Hoard could affect your character. So, for example, you might your personality might shift slightly to be more akin to the dragon's personality, or the item could be cursed. And wait, there's actually one thing that I love about this section. So one of the effects for the magic items that you may find is that tiny animals are attracted to you and the magic item. So you could have your barbarian just have this huge like +2 warhammer, and then they wake up and there's squirrels and doves just flying around them.
Perfect.
Love that very much. I'm just gonna randomly, Michael, do you have a D6?
Yes.
I do. I always have a D6.
Love a table roll.
Yeah, will you please roll on our Hoard curse effects table to see what goes down for this
Ooh.
particular bad news situation? A 2! Each affected creature automatically fails saving throws against dragon's breath weapons and frightful presence.
Ooh.
Automatically fails against frightful presence. That's fun.
That's
not
rough.
There's a lot of reinforcement of the intimidation factor of dragons throughout this book, which I found very cool and very consistent, from the player options to the monster design to obviously things like this. As there should be.
Sure.
There was another thing that I wanted to point out from this chapter that I liked, and there isn't a table for it. It's more the chapter presents lists of different types of regional effects you could add to your dragons. And there were 2 that really stuck out to me. The first being, as someone who likes as much customization options for their characters, one of them is that characters who live within the region of a dragon, their skin complexion could change to the color of the dragons. So you could be a human who has the purplish skin of an amethyst dragon.
Very cool.
And
like
the
that.
second one is that creatures and monsters born within this region have a high chance of becoming half dragons. So imagine a pigeon that's half a dragon, and how hilarious that would be.
Yes.
I
Wait
love
a minute. I gotta
that.
write that down. Half dragon pigeons.
And a lot of these regional effects also work really, really well for sort of presenting mysteries to your players. Like if you stop in a village and everyone's got purple skin, and you're like, that's sure interesting. Could it turn out that there is an amethyst dragon lair nearby, and that will be either a good or very bad thing? It well could. Do the villagers like you noticing that, or hate you noticing that? Or actively want you to notice that and stay with them forever? Who knows?
All that are purple are holy.
Yes, I love it.
All right, I'll pick my first fave, which is a nice tangent off of Michael's, which is specifically thinking as a player on this one, and some very, very fun, flavorful goodies. I really like the section in the Dragon Magic chapter on Hoard Items. Now, these are a new kind of magical item, and I probably should remember to navigate to my own thing. Hold on, it's in here somewhere. There we go. I do love Fizban. I've let adventurers put their toys in my hoard to steep once or twice. I can never get a good night's sleep while they're there, though. It's like an itch. And steeping is the relevant word here, because hoard magic items are a special kind of magic item that adjust their power levels based on spending time in a dragon's lair. And that power level will scale with the age of the dragon, including a very tempting and interesting sort of trade-off that normally you got to spend a year in the dragon's lair to acquire the correct level of power, unless it's been recently killed, in which case 8 hours will do it.
That's so sad and so cool.
That's a thing. But I love that, like, they've named the states for each of these kinds of magic items. From slumbering, which is just a basic hoard magic item, to stirring, if it's been hanging out in a young dragon's lair, to wakened for an adult dragon, to ascendant for an ancient dragon, which is part of what I was thinking about when I love the Way of the Ascendant Dragon name for the monk, where it's just like, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the way everything connects. It's like you're some kind of smart people who designed a really satisfying world. So those different abilities that it can gain or lose if it spends time not attuned to somebody outside of its outside of the place of power. It will slowly degrade. Each of them has quirks, some very compelling quirks. Who's got a D8? Eugenio?
Yeah. All right. That is a 6.
All right. Oh, nice. This item's bearer has advantage on charisma checks made against non-dragons for intimidation.
Ooh, I like it.
Once
I like
again,
it.
a little intimidation factor for dragons persisting across the various things here. So the
There you
basic
go.
hoard items that they put in here include a weapon with some various cool splash damage kind of properties that scale up impressively. A dragon touched focus for your spellcasters that gives you, I mean, even the slumbering version, which is uncommon, gives you advantage on initiative rolls, and it scales up from there to fun stuff and some extra spells, including new ones for this. A dragon vessel, which might be my favorite, which is just
That's
a
mine too, I
magically
think.
the cornucopia that fills with a variety of useful potions, or, and I love this, a scale of various alcohol, where wine is
love
the
this.
second to last stop, and whiskey is the, like, I was unaware of this hierarchy. Ale, mead, wine, whiskey is apparently the king of all alcohol forms to be magically created here. But also you could get like a potion of Dragon's Majesty or Fire Breath or Healing or lots of other useful stuff. And then Scaled Ornament is a piece of jewelry you wear, which has some really interesting resistance to being charmed or frightened, or immunity to being charmed or frightened for everyone around you, which is interesting. Sort of, it's a sense of the dragon's bearing that you almost carry with you, making you very tough to take in. And then eventually it makes you fly, just because. So I think these are really fun. I love the scaling of power level, the way it relates to the life cycle of a dragon. Do y'all have favorites? I guess you're already in with a vote.
I was gonna say,
mine I think is the dragon vessel. Oh, sorry, Mike.
Oh yeah, it's funny because Dragon Vessel is also my favorite.
Okay, but
I mean,
is it
come on.
because of the alcohol,
cute.
or is there another reason? Because I do have another reason, but mostly it's the alcohol.
I love Jesus, but I drink a little too. I'm just gonna say.
So did he. It's fine.
Famously.
I love it. I really like it, not only for the increasing proof alcohol that you can create, but also because when you create a particularly at the lower levels, when you have fewer options for what it can create, once you decide to create a potion in it, it's only viable for 24 hours. So it does. The problem is sort of compounded once you get to like Wakened and Ascendant, because there are so many choices. But when you only have a few choices and you're going to get one every single day, it feels to me like a good way to encourage your players to actually use their potions instead of saving them, for the end of the campaign where they will inevitably also not use them. Which, I appreciate that. So the Slumbering and the Stirring have just enough options, I feel like, that you're going to go ahead and pick what you want and use it every day, and take advantage of what it can make for you.
I love that. That's very smart. I hadn't thought through the sort of like keep people from hoarding it quality, no pun intended, of that. As I was sort of like, the interesting thing is by the time you've got a really powerful one, you're deciding between your wine for the day or your incredibly powerful magical effects. So certain players will be like, how much do I want this? But like, it's super fun. Michael?
My husband is mischievous enough that I know that he would take out these potions, sell them, and then promptly leave town just to make a little bit of coin. Or a lot.
Just running a snake oil business on your evaporating potions and you're long gone.
Amazing.
A dangerous combination. All right. Who has another fave they want to throw? We got some more time here.
Well, since you talked about how bathing these hoard items in the blood of a dead dragon can steep them faster, I actually want to talk about the dragon death section of chapter 3, because that sent me creating. I have several ideas for campaigns and adventures and stories based on dragon death, where the death of the dragon is not the final event of the campaign, but indeed in one of my ideas, the starting event of the campaign. The idea of this section is about how it's really about two things. One, some weird stuff can happen when a dragon dies. Some weird and possibly potentially very dangerous stuff, because particularly ancient dragons, right, are such repositories of magic and are so connected to the material world that when they die, all kinds of bananas things can happen. But the other part, the part that really set my mind going, are all of the things, is the passing the mantle section. All of the things that a dead dragon or a dying dragon can bestow upon its slayers or anyone in the vicinity when it dies, right? And that can be, soaking a magic weapon in the dying dragon's blood against its will to steep it, but it can also be a gift of this dragon to whoever's around, a gift of some portion of their power or portion of their hoard, which is really the same thing as Michael already told us. And so I think the idea of like a benevolent dragon who wants to care for the people and creatures in its territory, either being killed by foes or just, for whatever reason, dying and bestowing these gifts upon maybe I don't want to say unwilling, but sort of unexpecting adventures in the area, right? And what does that sort of look like, and how does that work, and what does it do to these potentially maybe even very low level adventurers who are chosen by this now dead dragon?
I love that because it even flows well into the feats that we get, the gift of the chromatic, metallic, and gem dragon, where you could start off an adventure where you have this dragon who does pass on this gift, and that gift is perhaps like a free feat for each of your players. And then it kind of gives them a sense of purpose within the campaign itself to basically give thanks to the dragon by helping live out whatever it was that it needed.
Or not, but then that's an interesting choice for the players, right? Right, but that's a whole story in and of itself, and I love that too. So yeah,
like there's somewhere out there is a disappointed great aunt dragon whose mission you are just not doing,
exactly.
and it's gonna come up when you eventually run into any of the classes, like the Phantom Rogue or the Bard of Spirits. They're gonna be like, "I got a message for you. It says get on it."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. So yeah, that's another one of my my favorites. Also, in Fizban's little note at the beginning of this section, he introduces us to the Foxy Duck Tavern, which is fantastic.
I want to go to there. Michael, what's your next fave?
From this chapter, I really love the what is it? The death throws table, dragon death throws
that's
table.
What here. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. The number what is it? Number 2, the dragon uses its breath weapon. Oh, that's so mean.
Yeah, death throw breath weapon. Pretty straightforward and pretty devastating.
Mm-hmm.
We talked briefly, I think, on the stream on a previous occasion about how I love that they included by the way, if this is likely going to kill your whole party, please feel free to roll again or choose a less date. Like, that's a valid way you can go. Michael will not. I can see it.
No.
Michael is I'm sorry, Wild Magic says fireball, the end of DMs. But who has a D6? We're rolling.
I can roll this one.
I do. Yeah, you do it, because I got to get mine out, so you do it.
6.
All right. The body is drawn through a portal to the lair of one of the dragon's echoes on another world, increasing that echo's power.
Yeah, echoes are another one of my favorite things in this book. I don't know if you all had a chance to chat with James about them, but they are one of my favorite concepts. As this season of Rivals of Waterdeep, if that's any indication, considering we've taken the Rivals to essentially 3 different planes already, I'm a big fan of world hopping and plane hopping. And so the idea that you can link those things together for a campaign through dragon echoes is so cool.
And that actually is what my next fave that I picked was a box from the very beginning, right after the poem, which I think we can all agree is my true fave. But Dragons and Dungeons Just as individual dragons have echoes across multiple worlds of the material plane, some places of tremendous power that have a connection to dragons resonate across the plane. Dungeons such as the Sunless Citadel, buried by Ashardalon in his wrath, Dragon Mountain, the lair of the red dragon Inferana, and the ruined city of Zaxaroth, home to the black dragon Kisaf, manifest in various ways across multiple worlds. Similarly, the power of mighty dragon slayers often resonates around sites they build or inhabit. The Tomb of Horrors is one such site, crafted by the Lich of Sararak, whose uncountable evils included slaughtering metallic dragons for the magic of their blood. And then it goes on to explain how artifacts themselves are not just a matter of sort of convergent, similar things happened on different worlds, but they're saying, no, these are the same orbs of dragon kind appearing in different ways in different stories across the worlds and planes of Dungeons and Dragons. And as the whole chat will know by now, I'm a comic book person, so I love the heck out of this. The cosmic cube is everywhere and it is causing trouble no matter what it looks like on your particular Earth. It's gonna be a problem. And it's in some senses all the same cosmic cube, and I love that. That's juicy and delicious. And again, it's D&D, so you can ignore this at your table if you don't like it. But if you do, so much fun.
I do. I'm with you. Give me a D&D stream show cinematic universe where we can use dragons to connect us all. Please and thank you.
Oh yeah, that is what that means, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
All of our stream games and home games echo in each other's stream games and home games.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh no. Amy's brain is broken.
Yeah,
all the possibilities, all the neurons are connecting right now into some massive
it's
multiverse.
the galaxy brain is happening. Yeah.
All right, I think we have a few more minutes here. Did I skip anyone, or are we back at the beginning for another fave?
I think it's my turn now.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, I got excited.
So I have two favorite monsters. If we have time, I'll go over the second one. But the first one that I wanted to point out was the Dragonel. It is. I'll read what Fizban has to say about them because they're not very well liked, apparently. Dragonels are distantly related to chromatic, gem, and metallic dragons and resemble them in basic form. Intelligent enough to understand speech, but incapable of speaking themselves, they are willful creatures motivated by the desire for food and entertainment. In the wild, they are picky eaters with mercurial moods, inclined to toy with their prey before going in for the kill. Now, what I really like about there's two things that I really love about this monster. It's a challenge rating 2 monster, so it's going to be a really good fight for your low level adventurers who are like, I want to fight a dragon. You're like, this is going to be a pretty admirable opponent for your players because it has a 60-foot fly speed, flyby attack, meaning it can get in range, attack, and then fly away without triggering opportunity attacks. It has multi-attack, so it's going to be dealing some pretty consistent damage, and it has blind sight and dark vision. So this is a creature that you could throw at your players when they're just setting up camp for the night, or maybe if they're a little higher in level, you can have multiples of Dragonels attacking. And effectively, if your players are not having, if they don't have ranged weapons, they're going to be at a severe disadvantage because these creatures can fly 60 feet. So they can fly in, they can swoop in, attack, and then get out of range of some of your shorter range weapons. But the big thing that I really love about this creature is that with your DM's permission, these can be summoned by paladins using Find Greater Steed to act as a flying mount for your medium-sized or smaller creatures, which I think is really awesome because we have the Drake Warden Ranger, which lets you fight alongside your own dragon and eventually ride them. This one allows paladins to do the same, but without having a whole separate subclass. You get to sort of mix and match this creature with whichever subclass that you've chosen for your paladin.
I love that.
I love it.
Big, strong agree on all of that. I think my favorite thing was also that it was summonable and just these absolutely beautiful pieces of art, which I'm going to look up the credits for. Well, Eugenio maybe tells us what he thinks of them.
Yeah, I love all of the different like you mentioned, all of the different options for mount dragon based mounts, not necessarily dragon mounts, because as pointed out, a full dragon likely finds it rather demeaning to serve as a mount. But I love that, and I also love all of the, since we're talking mechanics a little bit here, all of the instances of flyby, because there's a section earlier. I want to probably say chapter 3, but I don't remember. Where it talks about how you can add flyby to any dragon if you want to really make it a little more interesting. I love the flyby feature. I think if you're fighting a flying enemy and you are ground bound, it is totally reasonable that you would have a hard time swiping a last minute attack of opportunity. So a big fan of all the creatures in this bestiary section, and the fact that we can now add that dragons at will.
And I'm a big fan of Nikki Dawes and Sean Wood, who are the artists for these that we've been going through. Thank you for your patience as I check that out. I like the look of figuring out how the saddle should work and all of that.
Yeah.
The section. There's one last thing about these creatures that I really love.
Yeah.
I think there's just like a sentence in there for players who would want to potentially tame one of these and use it as a mount if they find one in the wild. And that is that these creatures are a little devious, because if they get a sense of like what you're trying to do and they don't like you, they may play along and let you mount them and go flying off with them. And then when you're high up in the air, yeah, exactly, they could flip over and drop you from the sky. And in that moment, you will find out you did not tame the Dragonelle. The Dragonelle was just playing with you.
Beautiful. They're their own little traps. Fluffy Snowfall, by the way, kind of set us up for this, saying, I won't drag on with this question right at the start, but what new draconic creature are you the most excited about being introduced? So thank you for that great pun and even better question. I will say I picked a monster that is one of my faves, that just won't take more than a second to look at, because it's just the basic concept that I really fell in love with. There's so many like new terrifying creatures in this, but there's also, when we talked about the Hoard Scarabs, we talked about the sort of ecosystem factor, the other things around dragons, or like the people who might want to serve them or be inspired by them. And then these guys who I love, the metallic sentinels.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. These are little animated constructs that friendly metallic dragons can make. They can leave you a beautiful little metallic peacekeeper, or my favorite over here, the metallic warbler, a little metallic songbird who's just looking out for people. They have some sort of pacification abilities to kind of diffuse violence, which is either delightful or kind of dystopian, depending on your villager's perspective, probably. But they have, like a little telepathic bond, immutable form for the metallic warbler. It has a little calming mist. And I just love the story possibilities of, the protective metallic dragon leaving you these gorgeous little guys to just look out for you. Or
why
get
did I
in your way and
immediately
get corrupted.
I immediately thought of something nefarious, and that is a chaotic good metallic dragon who releases these into a village, and that's how they control them and keep them from ever fighting against them or having any conflict whatsoever. Like the peacekeepers could be ordered, like, if someone raises their voice, use the mist.
Yeah.
We love our metallic dragon patron. Nikki Dawes again with the amazing art on this one.
Yes.
A fave creature?
Well, I'm biased, right? So my babies are my favorites. But if we're talking non-dragon, but dragon-adjacent creatures from the bestiary, then I have to pull a Celeste Conowitch and say the Hoard Mimic. I love a Mimic, and this is such a good one. Definitely a creature that, like, requires some build-up to really have the effect that you want, right? There are plenty of great dragon creatures in here that I could just toss in sort of at will to get a bit of flavor. The Hoard Mimic you really want to build up to do right, but oh my goodness, is it glorious. A CR8 Mimic that is a giant pile of treasure. Yes, please.
I
Now,
Yes.
love it.
I forget if
Um,
is it the emerald dragons that like to use illusions. There's a certain dragons that
Yes.
like illusion
I believe that
magic.
is Emerald.
yeah, the cunning
I
and
believe that is
manipulative, I
correct.
think, was in
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. So and
Right.
so what I really love, this was actually going to be my second pick. This was my second pick for monster to talk about. The reason I love it is because it says that horde mimics will work with dragons, so they both benefit off of one another. So I envision any dragon that has illusions, they would keep the horde mimics at the front, and so adventurers, what have you, would come in, find the horde, start picking from it, get eaten. And but then smarter adventurers would have to make maybe a skill check to determine like the type of dragon that you're hunting is prone to use illusions. Therefore, that far wall back there that looks like the end of the cave is actually the entrance into the real horde, where you'll actually have your face off with the dragon.
I love that. These are just a few of the amazing things that you can find in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. We love going through these and pulling out all our faves, but I would love to hear if you're watching this later on YouTube or when I go back and look at the Twitch chat, what your fave element is if you've already snagged this one. And I hope that you will be bringing these to a table near you soon.
It's D&D.